For a long time now, I've kind of felt as though there's this missing conversation in my life. I didn't have a lot of people to talk to about my skin and my heritage and the people who would hurt me because of those things. It was starting to get a bit lonely for me. So one day I discovered this kind of hidden community, and it was so powerful and positive that I wanted to share it with others who didn't know about it. It's called an affinity group.
An affinity group is essentially a club or group of people who are able to come together and bond over the fact that they have a shared characteristic.
For example, any of the identifiers, so race, ethnicity, gender, sexual identity.
I'd say it's a group of people who can come together and who can share like something that makes them different, that they have in common, that makes them different from like the larger group they're a part of.
I am part of Jewish Culture Club on campus, and I would say Jewish Culture Club plays a pretty big role in my life because I'm involved in a lot of like Jewish things outside of school, and so it's nice to be able to like come back to Providence Day and still have like that community.
BSU plays a big part of my life because otherwise in school I don't talk to other Black people, and so we get to come together and talk about what's going on in the world with Black people.
I think it kind of plays the role of just a place where I can go and not have to worry about how I'm being perceived or kind of what other people are thinking of me.
Well, affinity groups play a huge role in my life. It helps me be more comfortable with my identity and who I am as a Black woman in today's society.
Of course, we've lived in different places and we have different families and things like that, but I strongly feel that when I talk to another person in my affinity group, there's this sense of community, a sense of unity.
So in middle school, we had Cultural Alliance, and I was a part of that, and there were only a few of us, but then coming to high school and joining Speak, there were a lot more people, and so being a part of Speak last year and seeing how the leaders kind of directed what we talked about and getting to share all of our stories and the way that they always kept us involved, I wanted to be a part of that.
I'm a social bunny, so being around different people doesn't bother me at all, but I think it's important to be around people like yourself. Not that you're getting tired of everybody else, but just, to be around people like yourself and be able to relate to different things, and actually, have a connection that you wouldn't be able to have, with other people. I think that's important.
I started the Multiculti Affinity group because I actually didn't really have anyone to speak to myself about what it was like being multiracial. And so really I started it for myself, but then it got started and it was just so awesome. I wanted to share it with people, like help other people who are going through the same journey I kind of went through, coming to terms with my race, navigating that part of my identity.
So I'm a leader in Jewish Culture Club because I was a member of it for the past few years, and I didn't feel like we were making the most out of what we had because no one even knew we existed. It wasn't a big club on campus, and I wanted to make it into something bigger so more Jewish kids on campus could feel like there was somewhere for them to go during club time. If something happened in one of their classes that they didn't feel super comfortable about, they had somewhere to go with that.
Back when I first actually, became a part of BSU, there was a lot of stuff going on in Charlotte at the time, like the Charlotte protests and stuff like that. And it was a time where, I guess, being around or being able to talk to people like myself was really big because we saw these same issues over and over and over again. Be able to talk to somebody about that was, I think, important for me. Me wanting to be a leader, I was always at the BSU meetings, and it's, my culture is something I feel very strongly about. So being able to, be a leader in one of those groups and, just have conversations really with, about different topics that, good or bad, being in our own space, that's what really made me want to be a part of it.
I think there's the perception that affinity groups are exclusionary, but in reality, they're exactly the opposite. They're about community and unity. They're about forming connections between people who share a similar experience, who may otherwise not be forming these relationships, forming these connections.
It's unfortunate that those comments have been made, only because I know affinity groups are created for minority groups to have that sense of community, to feel comfortable in a larger setting where they are still the minority. As a minority, it's hard, no matter if you're gay or you're Black or Hispanic, being a minority in general is just very challenging. Affinity groups' whole purpose is to sort of give minorities a space where they can talk freely, where they can converse with people who are like them, talk about struggles, talk about successes, and share advice and really learn from each other.
I think that it's important for affinity groups to have their spaces where they're just members of that group, like a group like VSU. Sometimes they have affinity meetings, sometimes they have community meetings.
So for the Black Student Union, we have community meetings, and those are really important when finding allies and bridging connections that way. So you don't have to necessarily be Black to be in the Black Student Union, but for community meetings, you can have discussions and you can find allies that way as well.
I do like affinity and community meetings, because in affinity meetings, we can talk about what's going on specifically with Black people, and then in community meetings we can talk about things that affect everyone, but specifically towards Black issues.
I like it. I think you can only learn so much from people like yourself. You won't have opportunities to get different perspectives if you only talk to people who agree with you. So I think, especially with the community meetings, I like those so much because you can hear different perspective from somebody who has a totally different background.
It's important to include people who wouldn't necessarily consider themselves a part of the affinity group, only because they're advocates, right? And so I believe they play an important role in driving inclusiveness within a greater community.
No one really understands how much a connection can mean to somebody else, and so trying to establish those and to develop those can mean so much.
I think it was interesting coming to Providence Day, just because I've lived overseas for the past 3 years, and I've had the chance to travel to a whole bunch of different places and experience culture, various different hues and colors. And so I think it's super important. And I think one thing that Providence Day is doing well is that they have these affinity groups, because I felt even living overseas, there was a lot of diversity, but there was no place for me to sort of go and talk to people who were similar, unless I did it on one-on-one conversation. And so I think Providence is doing amazing work with affinity groups.
It means so much to me to be a part of a group that is so accepting and caring, especially as a 9th grader. I remember sitting in that first meeting nervous and terrified and not knowing what to expect, and realizing that there was this group on campus with just the most amazing people who were so open and kind and were teaching me so many things that I could apply to myself, but I didn't even know about other people. I think in general, affinity groups are very important for that same kind of thing across the board. Yeah.
There's not much more I can say, except I hope that everyone considers joining an affinity group, even if it's as an ally, because they're about something that this world really needs more of right now. They're about humanity.